what's the first thing that pops in your mind? And you just write down one word, or if you want to write a whole sentence, or if you want to write down a couple words. You need a pen, so I have a few to share. Pen. Take your pencil. Gabby, would you like to one? He's not helping.
Alright.
Okay.
Do you need some more? I've got one. There's over there.
I'll just give you 1 minute to pull that out.
What comes to mind when you think of dyslexia?
What comes to mind when you think of the word dyslexia? What's the first thing that pops in your mind?
Just write down.
As you write, I just want to say thank you for coming.
This for you.
My name's Josiah. Oh, Gabby, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Gabe is going to introduce you.
Oh, yeah.
This
This is my dad. You also might know him as Mr. Josiah, the learning support from primary. And yeah, he's going to be talking about dyslexia.
Alright, let's give him a warm welcome.
Okay, so thank you, Raina, for. Yes, I've been a learning support teacher for about 6 years, and before that I was a classroom teacher, and part of my study was students with learning differences. So I think it's a really cool subject and really important to bring awareness for. Some things I want to talk about today are some of the challenges students face, how they overcome their challenges, how we can support them. And my favorite part is there's been a lot of new research into the strengths and even advantages of dyslexia. So some of those things I hope today when you walk away you'll all have some new insight and gain some new information about that. Has everyone had a chance to write down something?
Here, I'll hold it for you.
So, someone wrote spelling, or spelling. Spelling, learning disability, mixing up words, spelling. I don't know what it is. Can't read.
And Diane.
And Diane might be a person you know. Sorry, Diane. Brain disorder, disease. Brain disorder. Difficulty reading. Never heard it before. I don't know what it is. Writing, spelling. Writing and reading difficulties. And someone who misreads something. So I think this is I want to read someone's personal story. So pretty much all of those words are deficit-based, right? It all comes down to this is a problem. This is an artist who later in life realized what dyslexia is. And this is in her writing, how she wrote it. And Madeline says, I grew up believing I was stupid, even worse, I was treated this way. I was told that I would never graduate high school, never get into college, and never be successful. I was labeled and treated as handicapped, special, incapable, and once even put in a closet to take an exam. I became a guinea pig for treatments to correct my condition, when in actuality no one understood the truth, that dyslexia is a strength of mine. At 7 I was placed into special education class, and neither my parents nor I were ever told why. I was 13, the first time I ever heard the word dyslexia. only 6 months ago did I ever learn what dyslexia really is. Now I know I'm not broken, damaged, or even stupid. I'm not ashamed. I'm successful because I'm dyslexic. So again, one of the reasons why I thought this talk is really important is to change the mindset on what our feeling of what dyslexia is, how to support each other, and how to gain a lot of new tools to be successful, whether you know someone or if you have it yourself. So, interesting statistics. About 7% of people actually have a diagnosis, but up to 20%, it affects them in some way. So you might have grown up saying, I'm a really poor speller. Maybe a lot of the symptoms connect to who you are or someone you know. And even though you're not, you don't have a diagnosis, okay, a lot more people show symptoms of dyslexia. A few misconceptions. Okay, some view it as a problem to be fixed. Some say you're not trying hard enough. And many people don't even recognize that there are advantages to being dyslexic. I think because of time, I'm going to skip this short one. A young child was asked when they see these letters. The teacher said, what do you see when you see these letters? The child said, well, I see they all have a line. And they all have a circle connected to the line. But the way their mind visualizes those letters is not the way an average learner does. So they can flip it upside down, reverse it, and think when you're reading how that might confuse the student, right? The M and the W, they often confuse the N and the U. Even numbers, they mix up frequently. Again, not everyone, but many do. So, who would like to volunteer and feels confident in their reading abilities and wants to be a risk taker? To try a short passage. Anyone? Lisa? Anyone?
Come on, if you don't do it, I have to do it. So Junior,
Okay.
do it.
Lisa, nice and loud.
All right, Issa.
Okay.
Good job, Issa.
Now, this is going to be confusing, but try your best.
Kind of navigate a maze or a maze where the malls keep shifting instead of being big. It might look like kids, and a simple pop could become a confusion like block. Even the smallest words turn into puzzles, but this unique miraculously remains. Oh, brought water. But then some wire also unlocks amazing creativity and problem-solving skills. Dyslexia might twist letters, but it adds a whole new dimension to thinking.
Good evening. So, thank you for your risk taking. Was that a lot more effort, Issa, than you thought?
Not really, it was
Well, someone who struggles with, imagine all the letters your mind is flipping around, upside down. It takes a lot more mental energy, right? So when you're reading, you are getting fatigued and tired a lot faster. Okay, this is the actual passage, what it says. Dyslexia can often feel like trying to navigate a maze where the walls keep shifting. Instead of reading big, it might look like dig. And a simple pop could become a confusion like Bob. Even the smallest words turn into puzzles, also unlocks amazing creativity and problem-solving skills. Dyslexia may twist letters, but it adds a whole new dimension to thinking. Okay. So, some very common signs in school. You might have slow reading, struggling to spell, as many of you said. You might have difficulty following instructions, remembering sequence like days of the week, or your times tables. Just to break it up by age, so for younger children who are learning to read, even in the early years they might struggle with rhyming words, learning the alphabet. You might have trouble recognizing shapes. Those early phonemic sounds takes a lot more repetition to learn. They might even mix up three-letter words like was, they might mix it up with saw. So flipping it around. It's not even just flipping a letter, sometimes they'll flip the whole word. As you get a bit older and the writing and reading demands get more challenging, there is more risk without support that students begin falling behind. Okay? Their understanding of vocabulary words might become less than their peers. They could struggle with poor handwriting, and many of the academic challenges could lead to social isolation. So again, if you grow up in a school environment where you're not receiving support, many of those students by the middle ages start feeling a lower self-esteem. And again, many of them might feel like I'm stupid or I'm not as intelligent. When you get a bit older, the slow pace affects assignment completion. Sometimes you struggle to find the right word to use. It could even impact learning foreign languages. And you're quite strong at listening to vocabulary, but you're not able to use it as effectively in your writing. Your grades with hard work might still be pretty good, but you're much more anxious generally. So a couple of myths with dyslexia. One is you're less intelligent. Okay, but a lot of research has shown that individuals with dyslexia often demonstrate strengths in creativity, problem solving, innovative thinking. The second myth is you're just lazy. You're not trying hard enough. But looking at the brain, research has shown that the brain processes information differently in unique ways, and you will often require different teaching methods to learn the material. And the last one is you can outgrow dyslexia. But again, it's not something you can outgrow or be cured from. But with the right supports, you could definitely be successful academically and professionally. So neurological basis, looking at the brain, if you're familiar with the left side and right side of your brain, scans have shown that the language processing on the left side is often less active than non-dyslexic people, right? But then it's also shown at the same time that the right side of the brain is more active. So again, going back to the strengths, is often a more creative problem solving. And the visual spatial reasoning is how they can manipulate letters and see things differently. Another factor that could complicate things is many children with dyslexia have other learning differences. So many of them, 40 to 60%, could also have conditions such as ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Or they might not be hyperactive, but their focus is a lot lower. Dyspraxia. So the word dys is a Greek word meaning difficulty. So dyslexia is difficulty in reading. Dyspraxia, difficulty with your motor coordination. Dyscalculia, many people will struggle with mathematics and numbers. It could also be connected to a language disorder. And there's also the anxiety and emotional challenge. And I think that's really especially true for students who are not supported throughout the process. And again, if you're someone who's dyslexic and has ADHD, organizational skills is something you will find challenging. So planning out your lessons, schedules, managing your time. You might really struggle with missed deadlines. And again, the emotional impact without support. Many students end up feeling frustrated and low self-esteem. This is why it's really important for early identification and support and understanding. Albert Einstein, who is dyslexic, said, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." Okay, this is kind of a humorous joke of the educational system. The teacher says, "For fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb the tree." Okay. What I really appreciate is I feel like our school and many schools around the world are putting a lot more resources, time, energy to try to understand the differences in our learning and not see it as a deficit or disability, but just simply seeing it as we are different. Okay? And this goes into what we call UDL. It's a term we've been using a lot at our school among teachers, and that's called Universal Design for Learning. And that basically says we are all different. Like in an average class, there's someone, English language learner. Average class is probably a dyslexic student. There's probably someone with ADHD. There might be someone with autism, right? All those differences, teachers used to say, "I'm teaching one method, read the material, take the test," and it's not differentiated. It's all the same, right? Kind of like that picture. This kind of also highlights the boy's trying to go up the ramp and says, "Could you please shovel the ramp?" And the man says, all these other kids are waiting to use the stairs. When I get through shoveling them off, then I'll clear the ramp for you. And the boy says, "But if you shovel the ramp, then we can all get in." Right? So that kind of gives you a good picture of what teaching needs to be, right? We need to make sure we're teaching what we say to be edges. So no matter, even if you don't know English, if you can't read, right? We need to, as a profession of teachers, work together to make sure we're supporting all students. So some of those ways to do that is what they say multi-sensory learning. So students with dyslexia learn really well when you tap into that creative visual side. So multi-sensory is your senses, touching, sight, hearing, seeing things, hopefully not tasting anything, maybe. Back to offering flexible assessment options. So if you really struggle with reading and writing a long research paper is probably not the best way to test how you learn, right? I might say give an oral presentation or use a computer with different accommodations. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. So this is where I hope your thinking shifts a bit. Okay, because there are some really amazing strengths that come with dyslexia. I already touched on that a little bit, and it doesn't mean every person with dyslexia is like a genius like Einstein, okay? But just letting you know that there are a lot of different strengths. So a few famous people. I won't read through it all, but Einstein, Elon Musk, he was dyslexic. But again, he also had a form of high-functioning autism. Boehlke is known as one of the best, most creative filmmakers It's also really cool. I mean, there's also some renowned authors who write books who are dyslexic. Okay? So really, my point is there's no limitations to what you can do and achieve. It's really a big takeaway. Some really interesting statistics from NASA. Over half of their employees are dyslexic. They're valued for their problem-solving skills and their spatial reasoning. Art students are shown to be nearly 3 times the incidence of dyslexia compared to the general population. Entrepreneurs from Britain, one statistic I saw was 35% are dyslexic. And one of the most famous universities for STEM, science, technology, and mathematics, they actually have the terminology referred to as the MIT disease, known as dyslexia, which is kind of a humorous way of showing how prevalent it is in that university and how students might be attracted to these fields. So again, thinking outside the box, so that same problem of like flipping letters and being confused by things is really an advantage in so many situations with older in life. Even younger, but maybe older as well. Creativity, your thinking skills, unique way you process information, allows you to develop often very innovative solutions. Problem-solving skills. Many individuals, again, have strong problem-solving skills, and that is their ability to view a problem often differently than what many normal people do. And any student or any person that needs to fight or work really hard through something, a big benefit too is you build a lot of resilience. And I think that's more and more important, showing how the support, either you become very resilient or you give up on yourself, right? Because probably for every success story with dyslexia, there is a not successful story because they never found the support group. There was one statistic around even people in prison, how the majority of them have a learning disability, right? So they kind of shows that the system failed them, where they never found the support, never found the tools to get them through. So instruction has really changed over the years. In our school, even myself, I use a program with dyslexia students called the Barton Reading Program. And it's based on Orton Gillingham, which is kind of a method for delivering instruction. So if you notice, what does anyone want to say? What are some things you notice in the picture? Lisa, what's one thing you notice?
It's like they instead of using like the letters, like just regular black letters, they have like pictures on the side to like show what the letters do.
Yeah.
And, like they have words on top.
Yes, you can actually manipulate the letters, the tiles, and they're in different colors, right? So the C, the A, the vowel's a different letter from the consonant. Anything else? Yeah.
On the J, it's like there's like a little image of like a jellyfish.
Jellyfish, yeah. And that's true. A lot of teachers in early years now have visuals connected to letters. So, and even actions. The Jolly Phonics has an action. So do you think you're less likely to flip a J if you visualize a J with a jellyfish on top? I think slowly you're less likely to flip it. Any more? Anything else that stands out? Play-Doh, yeah. Yeah, one tool that helps dyslexic students is they could make shapes with Play-Doh, and each sound, they might have made a J, an A, an M, and then the teacher will be like, mash it together, and they're like, jam. Okay, so again, multisensory and using your hands connects different parts of the brain. Yeah. Also, you have like the M with a little picture on top, and the way the mouth looks with the M. So those are all tools based on, this is just one approach, Boehlke, where if you start early with students, okay, many of them, we've had students with dyslexia by the time they left middle school, they really had no real challenges where it impacted their learning in a really drastic way. So this, even though you don't ever become non-dyslexic, you gain the tools to support you in your journey. Technology has, I think, been a huge advantage for dyslexic students. For some, if you think like old times where everything was read on paper, everything's written on hands, you hear stories and testimonials that when they were first given a computer and able to type, completely transformed their experience. So they went from hating writing to actually something they could do in the classroom. So I think our school is really, I think we're quite on top of technology. Can you think of any apps, like let's say you can't read, what is a tool you could think of if you cannot read words? Does anyone know any tools that can help you?
Like listening to it?
Listening to it.
Because like what I do, I put like into Google Translate and then it just says it for me so I can like interpret it without reading.
And are you interpreting it to another language?
Yeah.
So that's an awesome example, right? Where you might be listening in one language to gain the knowledge, and then you can interpret it back, right? This is an example one student I worked with. We do at our school map testing, and he came into our primary, and his first score was way in the red, right? And he's a bright boy. He will like, he'll talk and talk and talk, has a lot of knowledge. Based on our teacher understanding, we would have said, wow, he's so poor in his reading, can't comprehend what he reads. And then the next test, because we understood his needs more, he had access to the speech-to-text, or the text-to-speech software. And now he could actually listen to the problems being read, right? And this might be a good question to say, should everyone have access to this? If we're thinking universal design for learning, maybe everyone should have access to it, right? But right now it's only those that are assessed, and maybe an education teacher says, yes, you can have access to this. But you see how his score went way up, right? So his issue was not in understanding the problems. His issue was specifically in reading. He couldn't read the problems. Students who often will get extra accommodations and support, our school will write, you can call it individualized education plan or individualized learning plan, or sometimes the goal plan. What that does is, based on your needs, we will give you accommodations. Some students just need extra time. So what takes one student 20 minutes might take another student 40 minutes. And that's just because their brain's working a lot harder and they need a little more processing time. Lots of positive and encouragement. And I think we already talked a bit about this, but there's a lot of books out there. One of my books that I really valued and got a lot of information from was one called The Dyslexic Advantage, right? And that kind of